Well, hello and welcome to the J. Sterling Hughes Show, where we share the secrets and the strategies of how we're building a rapidly growing law practice. And today I have a special guest with me. I'm super excited to introduce to you Roma Khan. I started following her on LinkedIn, I don't know, Roma, maybe 4 months ago, and I love your post. And you do such a masterful job of being a serious businesswoman, which you clearly are. But you bring your personality to it too. So it's really fun to see that. And I'm taking notes and watching it and figuring out what I can steal from you and recontextualize into what I'm trying to post on LinkedIn too. So welcome. And maybe we can start, if you can just tell your story and how'd you get here?
Well, thank you, Jeff. I have to say that I also follow your lead. I was very impressed with your branding and your messaging and how you, within a few seconds, someone can see what you've done and where you're going. So the feeling is mutual. It's a very society, the mutual admiration society here. So thank you for having me on your show. I'm so excited about this. I know we interact quite a bit online, and I appreciate your support. It's been a long journey coming here, but I've always been this person. I've been a dreamer. I've been, an optimist. I am wild, and I take risks. I'm now taking calculated risks, but this has been the, audacity of being me. And so no matter where I've lived, where I've been, what I've wanted, I've always pushed forward. And a big part of that connects it all together is, I've always liked helping people. So, there's this thing about everything I do, you'll notice that there's something about helping people. So it's all part of my journey to get here. Where would you like me to start?
I love you're an immigrant, and I love the story of immigrant makes good. I just fascinated with that. And so, because I just think it's so fun to see people so driven to make it. They just figure it out against odds. And so maybe you can start a little bit there and kind of tell a little bit about that part of it. How'd you get into law, and how'd you get to where you're at today with your two businesses?
I grew up in Saudi Arabia. My first 10 years were in Saudi, and then I went to India from 10 to 16. And then I came out to the U.S. So we knew we were coming to the U.S. There's when you apply, it takes a long time. So your mentality becomes, hey, we're going to the U.S. You naturally start learning more about that. Your whole sort of becomes, more American oriented. And Saudi is, I think still is, I haven't been since I left it, very pro-America. So the American attitude, the American dream, the American personality, right, had been in me from the beginning. Now, this is also my personality to be the best. When I was a kid, I used to say, I'm going to be somebody big one day. And they're like, well, you're going to be an actor? I'm like, no, somebody big, somebody famous, somebody's going to make a change. I've been saying that since I was a kid.
Wow.
And people thought I was crazy or obnoxious. And I didn't mean it in fame, but I meant it in change, in some kind of change. Going to India at the age of 10 was a big impact on me, because I saw suddenly poverty and injustice, and rules were different. And granted, the Saudi Arabia didn't have, but when you're a kid, you don't see that disparity. And you started to recognize the social justice aspect of things. Coming to the U.S. was great. It's so much better here. I felt like, we have all these rights. A woman can do anything here. And I just constantly, fed my dreams, and my family was very supportive. I didn't want to be a lawyer right away. Being an Indian American, of course, my family wanted to be a doctor, and they tried everything they could to convince me to go to med school. That wasn't my calling. I love fashion. I wanted to be a filmmaker, so I pursued that for a little bit. And in that process, I just constantly, ran into I was a realtor in Malibu. Actually, that's what happened.
Okay.
And I'm sitting there going, like, I'm constantly reading things, and I'm also very passionate about justice. And then after 9/11, it was just, things were just evolving in a way. I thought, all right, I'm going to go to law school just so that I can know the law for myself, and I can take care of my family for nothing else. I constantly see my family signing into bad deals, and they come to me for like, oh, we signed this contract, or they were, getting into, just how things were evolving since 9/11. So I went to law.
Did you go to film school when you pursued that?
I didn't go to film school. I moved to LA, and I worked on a couple of, just on a production assistant type roles. Okay. And then I quickly realized, no, I want to go to film school. So while pursuing that, I had this realization that no, I think I want to be a lawyer. And then I started pursuing and I realized I really want to be a lawyer. This is something I need to do for myself and my family. I can always be a filmmaker. And so I went into law and I wanted to be a prosecutor. So with that dream, I went to law school and never wanted to be a corporate lawyer, not my deal. And after law school, I graduated in 2009. It was a terrible time to graduate. You know, people with
for sure.
better GPAs than me were losing their jobs or, you know, getting their offers rescinded. So I was in California at that time. And I thought big fish pond or big fish ocean. And then I moved to a pond and I went to Arizona and I wanted to, you know, the standard of living was a little more affordable at that time. I felt like we'd recuperate there and go back to California when the economy was a little bit better. So I got licensed there. I got a job there and I was hesitant about it and I found a job for a contracts manager at a really big company. And I was like, right, you know, talk to myself that this is not being a sellout. Every job is paid training. Go to this job, learn what you can, and then take that to your DA's job that you really want to do. So I went in and when I started, I was like, I love this. I'm so good at this. I get business, I get transactions, I get negotiation. I love talking to people. And so I just I'm so glad I took that chance. And I recognize that there are things that we want to do that we think are going to make us happy. And then there are things that we can do because of our God-given talent. And if we take that and get to a point where life is comfortable, you've got the money coming in, then you can do the things that you want to do. So I was able to build Charity. I did some pro bono work. And, you know, that's where my contracts journey started. And I just got into it and I started noticing the technology was bad. And at some point, I moved to Chicago. My family had actually settled in Chicago when we moved to the US. And I thought about, hey, you know, I'm going to build a software that's going to help people with contracts. And in 2013, I started off with that purpose, with that goal. Wow. I then spent some time researching and doing consulting and learning how legal departments processed contracts and started my company in 2017.
Wow. Okay. What was the name of your company when you started it?
It's Crush Contracts.
Still Crush. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So now, for someone who describes herself as wild, to see you make the evolution into contracts, okay, I'm trying to reconcile though, because to me, I think of contracts, I think it was just super boring. Yeah. And reading and staring at a computer screen, making red line edits, and then going back and forth on 25 turns of the document. So, like, how do you make it so lively? Like, what about it just really compels you?
Well, I look at the deal, right? It's all about the deal. So I worked in tech. I love tech, and I consulted in many different industries to see which, just for my own information. But I love the deal. Like, if the deal is exciting, the negotiation will be exciting. Like, the redlining part of it, won't be boring anymore. If you're working with the right team, your work will be exciting. So I don't, people say that, oh, Roma, you love contracts. And I'm like, I don't actually love contracts, but I say that if you have to sign a contract, make it work for you. So I look at contracts as, intelligence. Like, there's so much data sitting in contracts that we can take that and make ourselves a better business, a better lawyer, a better team, a better economy. And my goal with Crush Contracts was to make law accessible. That's my personal mission, but also to innovate contracts, right? And why? Because we're all signing contracts, and we're signing so many contracts now. As the world grows and economy grows, there are more contracts being signed. They get signed, they get stored, and that information just sits there. So if we were going to sign it, then make that work. So what excites me about contracts is the deal, is the information in it, and what you can do with that information to make the next deal better and make the company better.
So can you expand on that a little bit more, Roma, on how do you look at the deal and then look at your responsibility as counsel in that deal to protect your client and anticipate issues down the road that no one's even talking about right now? How do you balance those two? Because you can go extreme one way or the other on that. So how do you think about that?
So, it's unique for business lawyers, right? It's a little bit different for other areas of law. But when it comes to a business lawyer, and I think that was a big challenge for the longest time, where business lawyers didn't think like business lawyers. They only thought as lawyers. And many of them came from, law firms into in-house. Even if you're in a law firm, the mentality is to provide only legal advice. And the way I learned was to learn the business. So first I have to understand the client's needs and client's priorities, and then support that client. So I provide the risk analysis. If my client has a risk appetite and says, that's fine with me, I'm willing to take the risk because this is the reward I want, then I have to support my client and I have to, stand by them. And what I do is I prepare for it just in case things go bad, then I'm ready for it. So when my client does go out there, it's like armoring them to go out in the field and do their best. And, that was a post today. And then when they come back, with any problems or any injuries, then just be ready to heal them, because not letting them go out into the field is a bad idea. And letting them go without any protection is also a bad idea. So the balancing part comes with just, again, knowing your business, becoming a business person, and then a lawyer, in my opinion. So you're a lawyer, your switch is always on, your radar is always on, but you have to think like a businessman, right? If the business isn't making money, they can't pay you, right? So it's in your interest as well that the business goes out and makes money. So the attitude that I have, and it didn't start that way, right? I mean, I learned along the way that it's not to say, no, you can't do this. It's you can do this, and this is how you can do this, right? Provide that solution to them.
Yeah, that's super smart, Roma. What are some tactics you use to, not being employed by the business, what are some tactics you use to understand it quicker and not like the business unique needs that you're trying to negotiate for?
Sure. Yeah. So so I also have a small law firm. When you're a lawyer, everybody comes to you for advice, so you got to hang a shingle. And I have, I built a decent book of business of a lot of small businesses, and I work as a fractional GC. So when I'm not in the business, I actually give an hour of consult time, or dedicate an hour just to learn about the client's business. So, hey, what do you do? What is the nature of the business? What are the risks? What are the challenges? Why are you coming to me here? Yeah. So if they say, well, I just want 10 contracts. And I say, well, why do you need these contracts, right? Well, because I'm trying to sign this client. I'm like, okay, well, then you don't need 10 contracts. You just need 2. Go do that, come back, and then we'll do the rest. And sometimes it's me not increasing my business. I'm actually cutting, potential, billable hours. Right. But that rewards me later because the client saves money, recognizes the information I gave them, helped them with the business, and then they come back. And then it prolongs that relationship. But it's really taking the time to know your client and know your client's personality, right? That's a big deal. Like, you don't want to butt heads with somebody who has a certain personality. This is your client. They want some services from you, provide those services. If they're willing to listen to you, great. If they're not willing to listen to you, then it's your choice to keep them as a client or not.
Yeah. Do you find that it's easier or more difficult to negotiate deals, contracts with an in-house counsel versus a privately retained lawyer by the business because of their knowledge or their
It is difficult to deal with a privately, like an outside counsel. I believe that the outside counsel always has to put on a show that they're going above and beyond for their client. They maybe have billable hour pressure. I've seen contracts that were redlined like partially and sent back, and I'm like, why didn't you just put all the red lines in it, right? So then they would do it. So I found it more challenging, and the mentality is different, right? The in-house counsel's goal is to get this contract signed as quickly as possible, and the outside counsel's goal is to get their billable hours. So there is a big difference in the two goals in when this contract is being done. Now, I'm not saying all of them are like that. There's some improvement coming. I've noticed, more and more outside counsels are behaving like in-house counsel. But that's the thing. And the other problem is with the outside counsel is that they don't understand the business. They redline the contract very theoretically in a very extreme situation where if there's a breach and this is the case, and it's like, but it won't even be a problem in this transaction. You clearly don't even know your client's business, right? So that's the other problem that I found. Other challenge I see.
Interesting. Okay. I've been a part of deals where outside counsel has just killed the deal. And it's either strained the relationship so much the deal didn't get done, or it just got overpapered and it was just too hard, too cumbersome by the time it was over with. So can I take you back a little bit to when you started Crush Contracts? And I'm fascinated with the story of the emotional part of a startup. Like what was that journey like for you? I mean, you're going into this vast area of uncertainty and you're trying to innovate. Take us through that. And what are some of the things you had to overcome to get that business off the ground?
It was a lot of, I like to plan and execute. I like to plan to a reasonable amount and then execute and then keep planning and evolving. So some people like to plan everything and then, take off a little bit later. So part of it was, learning. I did a few years of research. I had some money saved up and I said, all right, I'm going to do this. So I started the company.
So what year was it?
2017.
2017, okay.
2016, I knew I was going to launch the business in 2017. So 2016, I started laying the groundwork. I knew what I wanted to do overall with the business was to innovate contracts and, more importantly, become a contract data company. And the way we wanted to enter the market was through acquiring clients through consulting and through technology.
Okay, so take me, pause there for a sec. In 16, you're doing your research. So what are you actually researching? Are you trying to understand the market, the whole market? Like what's going on in your mind as you're thinking through the startup the following year?
So I've been thinking about it since 2013, right? So 2013 to 2016, I've done my research. I saw what the legal departments needed. My goal was to build an enterprise contract management software. So I'm consulting at a lot of these companies for understanding what tools they're using. But I had this aha moment when I was learning. I recognized that these companies are all hiring individuals on a temporary basis or consulting basis, but they end up hiring them on they have to hire 40 hours a week. This is back then. They have to badge, tag, do the background check, do the interviews, bring them in. And then the work is maybe 2 months or 6 months. And then they have to let go. And then it's cyclical, right? And then a little bit later, the need comes up and then they go through the same process. And they may not bring the same person back this time because that person will be working somewhere else. It's quite expensive. So in researching for a software, which I didn't build eventually, I recognized I actually don't have to. There's so many other good options out there. I noticed that there was a need. And so I came up with the bundled pricing idea and I tested that out. And I was like, I'm going to launch my business with that idea of bundling the hours. And in that time, we started kind of like 20 hours a week. Most companies need, give or take, no more than 20 hours a week help. If they need more than that, they should just hire a full-time employee. So for that, I wanted to build a service, not staffing model, where a client can buy a number of hours and they can use them in flex. They can use it however they want. And here's the great thing. I wanted it to be remote, on demand. And I knew this is totally different than what everybody was doing. There was no remote services in 2007. Nobody really didn't hear about it. And I can show you my old ads and assets that I made. It was remote. So that's what it was going through. I'm like, I know it's different, but I believe that there are people like me who recognize the problem and they will get it. So just had that, optimism that this is a problem, this is a solution. I'm just going to go to market with it and see what happens.
Okay, you said a lot there. I need to unpack it because you're throwing out so many nuggets there, and you're flying through it like it's just normal. Okay, so you're a lawyer and you're looking at this problem from a technology solution standpoint, which is already unique. So tell us more about that. Like, why the technology piece of it rather than just the brute force, I'm going to start a firm and we're just going to hire lawyers and we're going to take care of these clients. You're looking at it first from a technology standpoint. How do you, what's going on in your mind that you're thinking that way versus traditional?
Well, because of what contracts are and what business contracts, that whole world is about, right? I didn't work at law firms. I don't want to work at law firms. I have a small firm, but that's, really worked as a business consulting firm, if you see my website. So I've always taken that approach towards business transactions and business counseling. The other idea was I just don't agree with most of the traditional law firm structure, just the way it's built, the way it pushes people, and the way it pushes away clients, right? So to me, contracts, commercial contracts are not legal documents. These are business documents. They're lawful and they have, some legal relevance to it, but everything we do has that, right? I mean, you can't turn everything into a legal something. It's only in contracts that somehow become these legal documents. Only attorneys can look at it, which is not true. It's a business document. And depending on the deal, there may not even be too much regulatory compliance in it, right? So there might be one paragraph, one clause that deals with it. So for most part, you don't really need a lawyer to do it. So my attitude was, at least when it comes to commercial contracts and business transactions, there is no need for a traditional law firm structure. Most of these companies have an in-house counsel and they're already working with attorneys who are licensed in different states. They're kind of, the world has become global, the transactions are global, so I believe that this is the better way of doing things. It allows more opportunity. It allows more, more instant help. So I didn't want to go the law firm route, and I'm on a mission to take that chunk of business and practice out of law firms and into the rest, the real world. So, if you need a question on just the data protection clause, then you can contact your lawyer. But you don't need a lawyer to look at the rest of the contract with the pricing and the delivery and things like that, right? You don't need to be a lawyer to do that. You can just have one thing. And my idea, like, this is my personal thing, like, lawyers weren't born with this information. We also learned it at some point, right?
Yeah.
Somebody taught us how to do this, and then we kept doing it, and we get better at this. So, having a law license, whether it was 10 years ago or just now, it has no impact to me in the knowledge that you gain, right? So for the most part, a lot of this can be done by, well-trained specialists that don't have to be lawyers, as long as, they can cover the subject matter.
Wow, that's so innovative, Roma. So now the service you provide to the business, I'm the business owner, and I come to you and say, hey, Roma, I need to put these deals together. Walk me through what it's like to work with you. How do you bundle your services? What are some of the options I would have to consider in hiring your firm? And talk a little bit about the innovation that you've put behind all that. I asked you too many questions there. Okay, so I'll break it down.
Yeah.
Just walk me through what it looks like for a business owner to work with you.
So we're not a firm, Crush Contracts, and I just want to be clear, it's not a law firm. We don't provide legal advice. There's a distinction, and we only provide contracts and contract-related support to in-house counsels. So let's start with that. If a business has a need, if a legal department needs help, then we will come in and help you with anything and everything contracts, whether it's contract redlining, negotiating, whether it's, looking at your contracts and creating reports, cleaning it up. So if they have a big deal going and they need some extra hands and extra eyes to help them negotiate this deal, then they'd reach out to us. They can buy the hours, the bundles, depending on the need they have. So we have a 10-hour, 25-hour, and 50-hour package, and you have to use it in a certain amount of time. So if their need is short, they're like, I only need, 10, maybe at the most 10 hours. Going to a law firm is, you don't know how much more it's going to turn out. We just say, hey, buy the 10 hours, use those 10 hours. And if you need more help than that, then, you can buy another 10 hours. So in a controlled way, how much you will be spending on this. For the most part, most in-house counsels know how much time they need, how much help they need. So that's the first part. They can select the bundle, and we are very instant. When I say instant, we're instant. So what we have is this beautiful combination of temporary staffing and outside counsel, where you can instantly start the service, but without the billable hours, without interviewing, without having to spend time to badge tag people and give them laptops. We're consultants, right? So you sign on with us, and we create an email account for you, and you send us the contract, we redline it, and we send it back to you. Now, beyond that, if the client says, no, I really like working with you, and I'd like your lawyers to support us with, my contract, my CLM management, then they can give us more access, and we'll go that route.
What's CLM stand for?
So CLM stands for Contract Lifecycle Management. It's a term that's been hijacked by the legal industry now, that is claiming that any software that does contracts is a CLM. So unfortunately, I tried very hard to not use that, but it's taken off. So at this point, a contract management software is CLM.
Okay.
So so you answer your question, a client can just reach out to us on our website, or they can contact me directly. They select the bundle, and within a couple of hours, they're ready to receive service.
Oh, wow. So when you said you have an email account, are you emailing on the firm, that client's behalf, with their email address as their lawyer, or is it?
No, so it will be, client at iceyourcontracts.com.
Okay, got it.
And then the client sends us the contracts. Now, I have clients who have asked us to negotiate it. They're very comfortable with it, and they said, no, we would like you to have our email address, and again, that's their choice. We offer the easiest way, but the clients have their own preference. And again, we work with the client's preference, and it's a very white glove concierge style service. Whatever the client needs, we provide that level of service as per their comfort level.
And do you have a target client a target type business that you work with in terms of revenue or size that you tend to focus on?
We do. We found that Mid-market companies, smaller legal departments value our services more and our pricing. They have small budgets. They don't always have the need. They need the flexibility to just on demand contact us. And we find that we are most appreciated in those small legal departments. So, if it's, when I say small legal departments, small contracts legal departments. So somebody has 2 or 3 attorneys at the most doing contracts and the volume is growing. So when I say mid-market, any companies that are earning anywhere from 10 million to $200 million. Now we can serve larger companies, but they then have the ability to just bring temp staff in, and they're comfortable with that.
So all of your prospective business clients have an in-house counsel, at least one person in-house counsel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now we have to be clear about that, because we can't, our staff and employees are licensed lawyers, and we don't want the client to misunderstand that just because somebody's a lawyer, they're going to give them the advice. So we support legal departments and we support in-house counsel.
Got it. Okay. The innovation side of things. We're trying at our firm to be really innovative, especially around billing. We do all fixed fee in our firm for family law. That's an unusual thing. So we've faced a lot of resistance on this at times, and more so from our colleagues who just don't believe it. So you've done a ton of innovation in your space. So what lessons or experiences have you bumped into along the way with trying to innovate, going against the tide? Because it says a lot.
I'll tell you, when I first launched Crush Contracts, I met with such great reception, and people were like, "I'm so excited for you, Roma," and then we sit and talk about it, and I've heard, I quote, "What do you mean remote?" And I said, "It's remote. You don't have to worry about any of that. We send us the stuff and we get it done for you." And she's like, "But I don't understand. You mean the attorney's not going to come into the office?" And I said, "No, you don't have to, right?" I'm like, "Does your outside counsel come into your office?" "No, but that's my outside counsel." I'm like, "So what's the difference, right? You're sending them contracts," and they could not wrap their head around it. It's like, "Yeah, but you're working for us." And I said, "No, well, we're your consultant." But think about it, right? And so the hardest part for people to even imagine remote work, and some people who got it, and were like, "Oh, I love it, I get it," but most larger businesses, large traditional legal departments could not understand it, and they could not understand the on-demand piece of it as well. And so later, fast forward after COVID, everybody gets it, right? And so there was that, sometimes you can be too early for something and people won't get it. My attitude is stick with it, keep talking about it, because when the world does catch up, they'll remember that you said it first, or they might get it sooner than other people. So don't pause and keep going with it. I'll talk about one. I love creating solutions. So I created. I just like the amount of NDAs that are getting signed. So I invented Global NDA, and it's a registry of companies where you have a mutual NDA and people just opt into it. And I get the same feedback right now. It's great, but it's so far ahead, right? People are still used to signing NDAs. They still want to send it. I'm like, no, I don't think they do. So we haven't, shut it down. We appreciate the feedback, but we're still around and we still talk about it, and we're going to hang in there because eventually the idea will catch on. So my advice, my learning lesson was, if you are ahead, don't take that as a deterrence. It's not a negative. That's great. You stick your flag there so far ahead that eventually the world will catch up to it.
Yeah. Well, you're ahead of your time on the remote, and I'm sure you're ahead of your time on the global NDA too. It's just, we need another epidemic or something to.
Oh, hopefully not. Yeah. I mean, there will be an NDA epidemic. I think people will. I had this moment. I had this idea for a long time, and then I had my last NDA that I was like, I've had it. I just asked my developers, could you just pause on this and build this for me, because I'm so over this.
Wow. So how do you recruit your attorneys?
It's word of mouth, it's networking. I love connecting with people. I love connecting people with people. So, a lot of attorneys reach out to me. The model that we build with the remote work, it's one of those things where I'm noticing what's happening in the legal departments, and then I'm also noticing something that was happening in the legal world, where I would meet a lot of women who were like, "Oh, I'm a lawyer." It's like, "Oh, where do you work?" "Well, I actually haven't worked in 10 years. I haven't worked in 5 years or 6 years." And what happened? "Well, I was at this firm. I was at the DA's office. I was at this company. I had a kid. I took some time off, and I just can't get back into work." So that started to, this was like around 2015. That was part of this bundled pricing offer, the remote flex offer. So I asked them, would you go back to work? Well, I don't want to work 80 hours a week again. I don't want to travel. I have kids. So there wasn't flexibility for the workforce, especially women. So part of building this crush contracts model was how we supported the flex remote work was, giving employment to these moms who were qualified, who needed a flex opportunity. And, at that time, DEI was not a thing. ESG was not a thing. Nobody was talking about women's rights and, working parents' rights. And I thought about that and I connected those two dots. And that's how I find most of these lawyers. I keep an eye out. I'm at meetings. I talk to people and somebody sounds like, hey, I've been working. I'm looking for an opportunity. If they have a great personality and attitude, then I reach out to them and I say, hey, would you be interested in being in my portfolio? And and again, it's all about flexibility for both sides.
Right.
So we don't pressure the people who are working with us just because they've signed on with us that they have to work with us. I mean, the whole point they're doing this is because they need flexibility. So I've never had a hard, difficulty finding lawyers. Most of the times, people have come to me, but if I need to, I can go out and search. And I love LinkedIn for that. It's such a great tool to find people.
Yeah, well, you're awesome on LinkedIn, but I'm gonna get to that in a second. I'm saving that because I love that.
Okay.
Okay, so they can just kind of pick and say, hey, Roma, I'm good for 20 hours a week or 10 hours a week or whatever it is.
Yeah. It's very important to me that, and I found this through when I was in consulting, that a lot of times staffing firms are primarily focused on the client. They don't think as much for the actual consultant that's doing the work. And I wanted to make sure that we didn't do that. So our attorneys get to pick the schedule. They get to pick the client. I tell them, hey, I have a new client. This is the work, and we pay above market. So we don't want to, make our client, we don't pay $27 an hour like the post that I posted. Yeah, that was terrible. Yeah. So we make sure that our attorneys are happy. And oftentimes it happens, like summer started, and some attorneys were like, well, we're taking summer off, we're traveling. Great, do your thing. And, there will be somebody else who can do the work. So because we provide this, again, service, not staffing model, the work gets done. The client sends this to us. We don't necessarily assign a lawyer to the client. The client knows that the work's going to get done. If there's nobody else to do it, I'll jump in and do the work.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. So your business clients that you attract, do you have a strategy that you are real intentional about? Is it just your personality, you being out there and meeting people and talking?
I've been blessed in the past where it was just coming through networking, just talking. I just started. I've been active on LinkedIn, I would say, since last fall. I've never leveraged it. It was just, and also my priority with the consulting side was just to, have a certain number of clients so I can work a certain amount and focus on my other projects. So we've been good with that. But now we are expanding. We are building partnerships with other companies to provide end-to-end contract management solutions. So our marketing and exposure has increased, and that's why you see a lot of my marketing on LinkedIn. We're doing emails. I like to talk, give workshops and do workshops and give as much information and advice as I can. So I'm learning that. I think it's interesting when it comes to in-house lawyers, how to attract them without a multi-million-dollar marketing budget. It's something that I'm learning, and what I think the key thing that I for me is relationships. If you have credibility and you're not selling, then people will come to you. So some time ago somebody said that, Roma, you're so good at selling, like teach me how to do it. And I said, I don't sell, I solve problems. If you're standing in a room and you hear two people talking about a problem, go offer a solution, even if it's not your specialty, even if it isn't something you think you can earn business from. Just tell them, let them find, help them, and they'll remember you. And then next time they need something, they'll come to you for it.
Right. You're just trying to add value to them. I can totally see that in everything you put out. I never get the sense that you're like, hey, this is my special offer today, sort of thing. It just seems like, hey, here's what we're doing, and kind of help you, and you just offer value. So that's great. And I saw you on Instagram too. You've got a pretty good thing going on Instagram too. So we haven't talked about that one yet, but
yeah, that's the thing, right? I had a personal Instagram, and then I kind of built a professional, but it really just kind of turns into that. So I didn't really know how to be a professional social media marketer, and I was watching people. I started. People told me you need to be on LinkedIn. Like all the marketing's happening on LinkedIn. Gary Vee talked quite a bit about it. So I was like, all right, fine, I'll go on LinkedIn. And I go to LinkedIn last year, and I'm like, wow, like it is insane. Like the amount of content production and marketing and posting that's happening in the legal world like blew my mind, and I was like, I can't compete with this. So I just started listening to people. I started following people. I was also doing IVF cycles last year. I did them last summer and the summer before, which is part of being a woman and a business owner. You gotta do it all together. It impacted I had to step back from business quite a bit to do that. So once that was done in October last year, I said, all right, now I'm going to focus on LinkedIn. I've been watching people, and then I started posting, but I couldn't post every day. I didn't know what to write. And I was like, I've been an influencer my whole life in real life, and I'm just going to do what I've been doing in person online. And so I started posting what I post as I normally do. And I have to say now, LinkedIn is my only social media account that is mostly active. My friends are like, we haven't heard from you in a while. Like you haven't posted anything. And I'm like, you should go on LinkedIn. It's all on LinkedIn now.
Yeah, I guess I didn't look at the time on that, but you had a lot of content on there too on Instagram. So like LinkedIn, let's talk a little about that. One of the things I think it's intriguing is how you talk about business, you're clearly serious about it. You know what you're doing, super smart, innovative, all that. But then you've got a whole bunch of just like Roma wild personality out there. So like what is there? I mean, there's got to be like, are you thinking about that? Or are you just like putting out there what comes to mind? What's your thought process?
It's mostly what comes to mind. I don't plan, but this month I said, all right, I'm going to do some planning, and I need to have like business focused posts as well. So we'll test that. But it's almost always, what comes to mind in that moment, and I'll put it out there. And I'm very happy that most of the times when something comes to my mind and I want to share it with my network, it has come together very nicely. It reads as it reads in my mind. It is received as I want it to be received.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's good, great content. Love it. Hope everyone follows you because it's really fun.
But there is a little formula to this. I think it's you have to put you in your messaging. You can't write for impressions. You can't write with keywords. Like what I do is I don't write for keywords, and I don't write for impressions. I write what clicks with people. I know people. I've known people for a long time, and I only get better at it. So I write knowing what will somebody feel from this? What will somebody experience from this? I don't post content, I post experiences, and that's my big difference. So I have found my content to actually get a lot more impressions than it should. Like, I have a lot of connections, but I don't think people read contracts. So I write with experience, and I write my experiences, and I put myself, my keywords are myself. So like if I like the color yellow, then there's going to be some yellow in the branding, and that's my favorite color. The company's color. I like helping people. If I like to, have fun. So what I like to do and who I am, I put that in my post. And those who get it, like yourself, right? I mean, you picked up on it, you enjoy it, you're interacting with me. And that's really what that is. It's not about content. It's not about keywords. It's about people and experiences.
I remember once having you posted something about loving contracts, and you were so exuberant talking about contracts. And then I'm thinking, and I didn't met you at that point. I just had been following you, and I think I sent you like a puke emoji back or something. Like contracts is so boring. And then you like went right back over the top of me, and he's like, well, look at all my friends here. We all love contracts. I'm like, wow, if I need a contract, that's the lady I'm going to. She loves it.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's like, contracts can be fun because again, look beyond the words, look beyond the document, look at the deal that's happening, right? That's what makes it fun.
Yeah. Well, congratulations to you. You've done a great job branding yourself and your firm just your business. And so it's been really cool to watch that. And so for people to find you, what would be the best way for them to connect up with you?
They can look up Contracts Queen. I'll show up. They can also go to our website, crushcontracts.com, and they can look me up on LinkedIn, Roma Khan.
So you've staked out and you control the Contracts Queen keyword online.
I've been called the Contracts Queen for a while, and I think a couple of years ago I was catching up with some friends, and I was just talking and I'm like, I'm the contracts queen. And he's like, why isn't that on your LinkedIn? And I was like, because it's LinkedIn. You don't put stuff like that on LinkedIn. And he's like, Roma, that's not what LinkedIn is. And then for people have been saying this to me for a long time. And only last year, I mean, I did change it to contracts queen a while ago, but again, I wasn't active, so people hadn't seen it.
Yeah.
But like, hey, and that's the thing, fortune favors the bold, right? I mean, there are a lot of other contracts queens out there, but nobody took it. No one took the handles, no one took, so, and I respect them. They are, some of them are very experienced contracts attorneys, so I consider all of us contracts queens, but I'm the contracts queen.
Wow, you've inspired me. I got to figure out what I want to be king at. Think about that.
It's a matter of like, and that's the personality that I have, right? Like I see something, I like it. I always say humble, not modest. I have no problem saying that because, you have something that you worked hard for and you have these, whatever, accolades or recognition, then flaunt it. You have it, you have to. And it's not to be obnoxious or disrespectful of others, but it's to show that hard work comes with these results. It can inspire people. If you're not setting that example, then how will another, immigrant girl look at, the world ahead of her and say, have all this passion, but I don't know where it's going to go. It goes here. Yeah. If this is you, this is where it could end up, right? So it's so important to show your success and show your accomplishment and your sacrifices and challenges to set the path for the people behind you to do better than you.
Wow, you're living that out. Appreciate that.
Thank you. And I have to say personally, I admire you so much. So when we connected, and the thing that I saw on your site was about the fixed fee, and I was like, this is amazing. I mean, sadly I know a lot of people have gotten divorced or just that cycle of it, and a lot of times the fees they've paid for their divorce, or the fact that they don't hire a lawyer because of legal fees and end up getting bad settlements at the end. I was like, I've never met, I don't think I know anyone else who does that. So kudos to you as well. And just thinking outside the box, growing your business the way you have, I looked at yours, mess. I'm like, okay, those are my goals. I'm going to do what Jeff did. I'm following in his footsteps.
Oh, thank you. We have a fun team. We're great people to work with. So they make it happen. I'm just the pretty face. So don't repeat that. It's not true. Oh, this has been a really fun conversation, Roma. Thank you for coming on today and telling your story. And I'll be cheering for you and commenting and sending you more puke emojis when you talk about contracts. So.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing what you do.
I appreciate this opportunity. Thank you so much. And hopefully we'll see each other in person and grab some coffee.
Yeah, we're only like an hour and a half away, so we need to find a way to make that happen.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Roma. You take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.